You are listening to Mining Stock Education, where you'll learn from the top leaders in the natural resource sector and uncover quality mining investment opportunities.
This is unbelievable in that it's never been explored. It's the real lottery ticket to this story. It's less than 20 kilometers away from Turquoise Ridge and Twin Creeks, which collectively are just about 20 million ounces of gold. It has the exact same structural setting as the Getchell Trend, which is a 40 million ounce trend intersecting the Battle Mountain. So we'll be very excited to drill this in the very near term.
Welcome back to Mining Stock Education. I'm your host, Bill Powers. And in today's show, you're going to be getting an introduction to a company I invested in the last private placement earlier this year. They also are a new show sponsor. I'm talking about Eminent Gold Corp. Ticker symbol in Toronto is EMNT. On the OTC, for United States listeners, you can look it up under EMGDF. A very tight share structure. Good people involved, a very experienced and successful technical team exploring in the Great Basin in Nevada. So that's why we present the company to you today. And to do so is Dan McCoy. He's the Chief Geologist. He has a PhD and a lot of experience in Nevada, as well as Paul Sung. He is the President, CEO, and Director. Gentlemen, welcome to the show today.
Thanks very much, Bill. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Bill.
Yes, and I asked you to do a shared screen presentation, especially for you, Dan, to just kind of walk through the technical aspects of why you're excited about the projects you have here in Nevada. And also, please, as you walk it through, Dan, talk a little bit about your exploration philosophy, how it's worked for you in the past, and how you're applying it to these specific projects. So with that in mind, gentlemen, take it away.
So I am Paul Sung. I'm the President and CEO of Eminent Gold. And as Bill mentioned, we're pursuing major gold discoveries in the Great Basin. Throughout the presentation, I will be making forward-looking statements, so please read this disclaimer at your leisure and keep that in mind as we go through the presentation. So on the next slide here, what is Eminent? Well, as a past mining banker and trained mining engineer, I've seen a lot of exploration stories in my past. And when I was given the opportunity to lead Eminent, I jumped at the opportunity as I think it ticks all the boxes on what one would look for when investing in an exploration story. You're getting 4 100% owned high impact projects in Nevada. And as most know, Nevada is literally ranked as the #1 jurisdiction for exploration and development in the world. And some might say, okay, Nevada's had a lot of gold and discoveries, but hasn't it been overexplored at this point? And that's a misnomer. The reality is it hasn't been. And you'll soon see that in the cases of Eminent, most of our portfolio has been underexplored, or in some cases, not even explored at all before in history. And you're getting a strong multidisciplinary team to do this. And we're attacking this portfolio using new concepts and fresh perspectives. So you'll see that the way we're looking at Nevada is very systematically, methodically. Never that has been done on the properties that we'll be talking about today. And with this team, you're getting a lot of success. I talked about myself. I'm joined here with Dan, who's a PhD geo. He's our chief geologist as well as a director. And Dan and I first met when he was at Cayden, and we remember this crazy time in New York when we were doing the last financing before Agnico acquired Cayden. And the reason why they acquired Cayden is because, among other things, Dan discovered the El Barqueno deposit in Mexico. And before that, Dan was the CEO of Keegan Resources, where he discovered the 5 million ounce Esaase deposit in West Africa. And rounding out the team, on the management side, we have Martin Bajic, who has over a decade of experience as a public market CFO and accountant. Aside from Dan and I on the board, we have Ann Carpenter, who's also a Bachelor of Geology, and she comes to us with 35 years of mining experience. She's got a deep Rolodex when it comes to government contacts, certainly in the Southwest US, as well as a great technical background when we're navigating our portfolio. And finally, but not least, we have Michael Kosawan, who, like me, is a professional engineer. He's currently the CEO of Torque Resources. And before that, he was a high-powered broker at Sprott Resources. So he has a deep Rolodex of investors all across North America and beyond. We'll now look at the technical team. And under Dan's leadership, I always joke with him, what's better than having one PhD geologist? Well, in our company, we have three. Coming to us from Newcrest with over 10 years of exploration and production experience, we have Justin Milliard, who did his dissertation on upper thermal mineralization, which is very local to Nevada in terms of mineralization and deposits. We have Ajit Milliard, who did her dissertation on Carlin type and sediment hosted gold deposits, again, very local to Nevada. And she comes to us from Newmont with over 10 years of experience. And then we have Jim Slayton, who's been really Dan's right-hand man, certainly since the Keegan and Cayden days. And he comes to us with over 35 years of experience in the Great Basin. And when I look at this team that we've established, I think it would be the dream team on any portfolio in any company. But the fact that all of these people are in Nevada on a Nevada focused portfolio, it's second to none. If we're going to find something in Nevada, this is the team to do it. So we'll move to the next slide and give you a quick snapshot on Eminent before I pass it over to Dan. So there's 4 projects here, and each of them offer a different opportunity in terms of stage and path to exploration and discovery. Weepah, I kind of view as our low-hanging fruit, if you will, and it's located within the prolific Walker Lane trend, which is a 53 million ounce trend. Weepah is actually noted as the oldest open pit mine in Nevada's history. It produced just over 117,000 ounces of gold with grade between 3 to 6 grams. And the opportunity here, of course, is to expand past that one open pit. Moving on to Gilbert South, our most recent add to our portfolio, it's also within the Walker Lane. And the opportunity here, we just couldn't pass it up, is the discovery of bonanza grade veins literally right below surface, because we're seeing a lot of outcrops. So the thesis is it's literally right below us. Moving to Spanish Moon, this is an analog to Kinross's Round Mountain deposit, which is a 23 million ounce deposit, and it's literally only 13 kilometers away from Spanish Moon, a property that Eminent has consolidated as a district for the first time in history. It's had past high-grade silver production of over 200,000 ounces, and we already have multiple precious metals targets in this area. And last but not least is our Hot Springs Range project, brought to us by Justin and Ajit Milliard. This is unbelievable in that it's never been explored. It's the real lottery ticket to this story. It's less than 20 kilometers away from Turquoise Ridge and Twin Creeks, which collectively are just about 20 million ounces of gold. It has the exact same structural setting as the Getchell Trend, which is a 40 million ounce trend intersecting the Battle Mountain. So we'll be very excited to drill this in the very near term. So with that, I'll pass it on to Dan to take us through the projects in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you very much, Bill, for teaming up with us. We're very excited about this partnership. And I'll go to the first question that you asked in your introduction is, what is my exploration philosophy? And I think it's quite important because every exploration company has a portfolio of projects. They'll tell you what it is, but they won't tell you why you have them. And now with 2 successes under our belts, both the 4 to 5 million ounce Esaase deposit in Ghana, which was discovered right without a drill hole previously, and the Barqueno deposit, which we sold to Agnico Eagle, both very good discoveries. So why do we think this company, why did I kind of basically come out of retirement to do this again? And I think the reason is because all these properties fit the model of what we're looking for. And to me, there's really 3 keys to success. You have to look for opportunities in regions where lots of gold has already been discovered. And there's no question that Nevada is that region. The question is, well, where is it being discovered and by who and why and when? And that's really what makes the difference. Because a lot of previous companies in recent past have really followed 2 particular trends. The Battle Mountain Eureka trend, which is here, and the Carlin Trend, which is here. And so the vast majority of exploration that's taken place, expenditures in the last 20 years or so have taken place in here. You can't, a lot of big companies, they're waiting for smaller companies to find something outside these trends, and they're occupied within these trends. And so when you look at where the Hot Springs range is, we were very lucky. And this is very lucky that we got it here, because this property hasn't been explored, and it is right next to one of the bigger and richer deposits in the Carlin Trend. As for the rest of our properties, why these? And I'll tell you why. It's because essentially all of these projects have had past historic mining on them, and yet none of them have really had modern mining on them or modern exploration on them. They've just been sitting there. And so, that comes to my main thing, is that what we are looking to do is not to do lemming exploration. We're not going to look for a piece of ground in the middle of a trend, that's already been drilled, and now we're going to drill deeper and more expensively. What we're looking for properties that A, have the possibility for grade, and we know that these three projects have the possibility for grade. B, have the possibility of width. The fact that there was an open pit on one of these properties tells you that there was a good width to the mineralization, and most importantly of all, strike length. That's a lot of times the thing that you have to add. And in this case, that's what we think we've added to these projects. So moving ahead to the projects, keeping those things in mind, first we're looking at Weepah. And Weepah gives us a really good opportunity to expand high-grade gold mineralization. Has historic production of 117,000 ounces, both from open pit and underground. It's currently open in all directions, and there's good grade and there's good width. And so what I think we have added to this, we've had this project now, we've been working on it for about 9 months. And what I think we've added is the promise of strike length to this. So we've actually discovered we have this pediment area in here. This is an area, pediment means an area where there's no outcrop. It's just essentially soil. And what we've discovered some very interesting faults using both geochemical methods as well as some really good applied geology, especially by Justin and Ajit Milliard. So what we're finding that we can add the things that are already present in this, which is good grade, decent widths, and we can add to that the promise of the strike lengths by our identification of these structures. In particular, we've been able to connect together the Weepah pit and the Weepah East deposit. We believe that there's a structure that connects those two together, and we think that could be very, very prospective. So grade and width, 6.1 meters, 8.2 grams per ton, intercepts up to 17 grams per ton. There's drill targets that, you can see it's a long ways between drill holes on the section, right? So, there's still ways that you could actually step out on existing mineralization. But we think if we add this additional technical work, this project has an open pit. It's never had a previous soil survey done on it. There's very few rock samples that have been taken outside of the pit. So this really gives us the opportunity to put those three things together: strike length, grade, and width. This is shows you a little bit what the shear zone looks like in the pit. So this is the open pit. This is that pediment area I talked about out there. And I'd like to call your attention. This is really very exciting to us, but there's a structure that runs right through the pit, but perpendicular to it. And we don't have all our samples back, but we really believe that this could be a way that we can connect together the Weepah West and Weepah East deposits. So we're quite excited about it. On to our next project, Gilbert South. Surface rock chip samples here are pretty astonishing, and it amazes us that nobody's really followed up. And once again, it's a question of why. Well, when this was explored, people were mostly looking for kind of low-grade, open pit, heap leachable things at the surface. You didn't have the discovery of Midas yet. You didn't have the rediscoveries of Tonopah and Hollister and Aurora, where now people are making very good money mining high-grade bonanza epithermal veins. So when we look at these grades, we're like, this gives us the opportunity to add this. We think this is the best bonanza style epithermal gold project in Nevada right now. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing some really good grades. We're following up on where some of these structures are. And, we really believe we have a good shot at finding the next big bonanza gold vein here. So why do we think that? Well, for one thing, we're seeing a lot of smoke at the surface. All of these, what we see in this photograph, are all high-grade epithermal veins. They're all running somewhere between 1 meters and 14 meters per gram. We don't think that this is the show. We're not really necessarily looking for an open pit here. Some of the grades are supportive of that. But what we're looking at here is we're looking at the very top of a very rich system. And so typically the kind of mineralogy we're seeing, the kind of quartz mineralization, styles of mineralization we're seeing, are all the kind of things that you would see at the upper to mid-level of an epithermal system. Typically the bonanza veins are beneath this. Now, we think that on some of the shafts here, there's been a fair amount of high-grade historical mining here. Some of the shafts and the dumps there, we found visible gold. We think we are actually already seeing, this bonanza-style mineralization in these pit dumps. So it's really a matter of just finding out where the focus is. Where is it all coming together and maybe giving us one big fat veins or series of veins. Spanish Moon, once again, very amazing that this project is here and hasn't really been explored because it's very close to the Round Mountain 23 million ounce gold endowment. It's only 13 kilometers away from there. It shares a very similar geologic environment. It's on the other side of the Round Mountain Pluton from Round Mountain, and it's sandwiched between these two very big volcanic calderas. And most importantly, it's got strike length. I mean, we're actually starting out with very good strike length on this. There's two areas that have received the most attention. The Barcelona mine target has been mined in historical times, but hasn't had any real modern exploration to it. There's a lot of in the old reports that tells us that a lot of silver was left in the ground, because at that time they were mining with very low silver prices and they had a long haul by mule and burro down to where they could process it. Antone Canyon is a more recent discovery, and it's another one of these epithermal low sulfidation state gold discoveries. Very good grades to it. And so this is almost a 2-in-1 type project that we have going here. We have, this is our most recent release, is Spanish Moon. And to move right along, to go into a scale, you can see here that we're the first group that's really completed a systematic metal exploration across the whole thing, across this whole strike length. And it is really one long trend, although it varies. There tends to be gold to the east and silver to the west. As you can see there, these are some of the golden rocks that we recovered, and silver and rocks that we've recovered right at the surface. And, basically we've identified now 3 different systems: the Van Ness Barcelona system, which you'll see in the west, and you can see some of the grades there. We'll look at it in more detail. The Antone Canyon target, that's got some previous drilling, and what we're calling the flower deposit, where we're seeing big, significant, broad areas of very high pathfinders, arsenic, antimony, golden rocks. So moving in a little bit closer, we have high-grade gold in epithermal veins, surface rock values up to 2.2 grams. And you can see here, this is the Barca Antone Canyon target area here. And so there was some very good previous historic drill intercepts here, such as 13.5 meters at 7.6. Altogether, we're looking at about a 1.5 kilometer long soil anomaly here. So although there was some very good holes, and you can see those here in the eastern portion of the thing, what we've done is we've extended it significantly to the west with our sampling. Going to the west side of the property, the Barcelona area, once again, no drill holes, which once again completely amazes me. We got some really super high grade rock samples in our initial sampling. You can see we have a really long 1 ppm silver soil anomaly here. And what we're seeing associated with the soil anomaly is some very high grade silver values obtained out of prospect pits, up to 8.5 kilograms per ton silver. So this is significant. And we believe that we will have some very good drill targets here once we complete our final sampling and our final mapping. This is what some of the different styles of high-grade mineralization look like at Barcelona. We have the truly epithermal style veins that are associated with Antone Canyon, very high gold to silver ratios. And then we also have this very broad, long areas of this 72 to 100 gram per ton silver that we're getting over meter lengths. So that's telling us that we have potential bulk here as far as silver mineralization goes. And the high grade samples that we've taken off the prospect pits and dumps tell us that we could have grade. So once again, everything we've looked at so far, Weepah, Gilbert South, and Spanish Moon, all has that potential grade with strike length. So moving on to the Hot Springs Range project, and interestingly enough, this doesn't fit my model, and it doesn't fit my model for exploration because we are very, very fortunate that this is still here. If you look here, you can say that Turquoise Ridge mines and the Twin Creek mines, I mean, we're looking at a Getchell trend that has about 42.5 million ounces of gold endowment. And yet a mere like 15 kilometers away, we have a very similar structural setting, and it's never been explored. As far as we know, there's never been a sample taken off of it as in regards to gold exploration. And so this really, we have to owe this to the work of Justin and Ajit Milliard. This is really their project, and I think it's fantastic. What we're seeing now, we started it when they staked it, there was nothing, but now in the process of doing early stage exploration, we're finding very highly anomalous gold in both surface rocks and in soils. And it's a direct analog to the Getchell trend. It's got the same structural plumbing. So we've gone ahead and done CSAMT. It remarkably accurately confirmed the conceptual targets that Justin and Ajit had actually postulated, which is amazing since oftentimes geophysics doesn't do that. So we're very pleased with that. So what did we find working there? We found structural framework, vertical feeder structures intersecting a shallowly dipping thrust fault, which is exactly like the Getchell trend. Ideal host rocks, limestones and andesites. What you want to have limestone, and you want to have that volcanic rock mixed in with it. You get the perfect combination for a good host rock, iron and calcium carbonate. And we're finding a strong geochemical correlation between the surface samples that occur at Getchell and the ones that occur at the Hot Springs Range. Basically at the surface, I mean, these are really high grade, very rich underground targets that are present at Turquoise Ridge and that are present, we believe, here at the Hot Springs Range. And so, you know, if what you see at the surface, if it corresponds to what is seen at the surface at Getchell, then you've got a really prospective target. So if you look at this, we're seeing very similar grades of gold, arsenic, mercury, antimony at Hot Springs Range project as we do at Getchell. And, you know, you can see here with the other features of the two targets, the Otis target and the Eden target, 3 kilometer long soil and rock triple anomalies. So once again, strike length and grade. And now what we need to find is we need to find the width. And that's why what we're going to do. And you can see in this cross section, the promise that the geophysics has developed to us with us. So we have a very similar thing. We have the thrust faults, we have the deep plumbing faults, same thing that Getchell has. And, you know, these were postulated just basically from air photos and from bits of mapping. And what the geophysics does is it confirms it. It shows us that we have this architecture between the resistivity and the conductivity breaks. We have exactly that fault architecture that we're looking for. What we need to do is we need to drill through a little bit of post-mineral cover. But we're finding gold in rocks right at the surface, 2.5, 2.8 grams per ton, that represent leakage from these potential high-grade feeder structures and their intersections with the thrust faults. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Paul.
Thanks very much, Dan. As Bill astutely mentioned at the outset, it's a tight share structure, just over 40 million shares outstanding. You'll see here that over half of the company is held by management and key consultants and technical personnel, with the balance being high net worth retail. And looking at this share performance over the last year or so, I'd argue that we're all aligned, waiting for that major discovery to happen, as the stock has performed quite well, certainly given a quite volatile gold period. I'll also note that in our cap table, we don't have any warrants, so there's no ceiling in terms of share performance that you have to worry about. And being with only 40 million shares outstanding, that really gives the shareholder quite a bit of torque on the upside, certainly when that news comes in. And with that, maybe next slide, Dan. So yeah, as all of we need to have some news flow to keep investors interested. And of course, with 4 active programs going on that Dan just touched on, there'll be a lot of news flow coming out as we get all 4 projects to the drill ready stage. So there'll be, soil samples, rock samples, more geophysics, et cetera, coming out as we prepare all 4 for drilling, which leads in, I think, to our last slide here, Dan. Obviously, everyone has a lot of, opportunity to look at other stories. As I mentioned, I think Eminent ticks all the boxes. You're getting a proven exploration team that has had multiple discovery successes. So they've found gold in the past and have created shareholder value. We're in Nevada, the #1 address for gold endowment and infrastructure. Also, you don't have to worry about waking up one morning and having some, third world government expropriate your asset away from you. And the team is coming at it with new concepts and fresh perspectives, as Dan went through the projects, doing everything differently and in ways that have never been done before across the entire portfolio. So when you look at this Lassonde discovery curve, it's really telling you that the biggest bang for a shareholder's buck, or the maximum return shareholders tend to make, is at that point between exploration and discovery. And, we have the pleasure of being the first company to be marketed with Bill's group here. Never before have we been out on the road talking to anybody. So it's a new company coming out to market, as well as it's never been drilled before. So I'd argue we are at that inflection point between where we are now to moving up that discovery curve. And with that, thanks everybody for your time and listening. And I'll pass it back to Bill.
Thank you very much, Paul. Dan, do you have a favorite project of these 4? And of the 4, where should we expect the most news flow over the next coming months?
I think, Bill, it's a tough question. It's like having 4 kids and being asked, which is your favorite kid? Because I think the amazing thing with me is that by now, we've been working on these Weepahs now. We've been working on it for a good 9 months. The other ones, less time. Usually by this time, 1 or 2 of them have fallen off. You haven't confirmed with your surface exploration. You haven't confirmed what you were expecting. In our case, all 4 projects are still really going strong. Now, as far as delivery goes, I think a lot of it just comes down to the timing, because Hot Springs Range project was the first project, and we've had this project now for a year and a half. Because it was the first project, it's pretty much drill ready. We're ready to push the button on that one. We have permits. We have a contractor lined up. It's pretty much ready to go. At the same time, we don't want to neglect these other projects. We want to be able to have a pipeline of drill projects ready to go. So I would say the next project that will probably be ready to go would be Weepah. All of them could be drilled, but I believe that you should do as much. The drilling cost is your major cost, and I think we should try to get the targets refined as well as we can. And so that's why we still want to go back for a second phase of work, possibly some geophysics at Gilbert South and at Spanish Moon. Weepah, I think, will be ready to drill fairly quickly, actually. So we think that we have the potential to maybe drill all 4 of these projects starting next year.
Okay. So, Paul, we should be looking at Q1 for the drills to start turning in Nevada here?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just to kind of follow your question, if I may, that you asked Dan on, and that's what's really great about our portfolio that I mentioned kind of at the beginning is that all 4 projects are at different stages of their exploration, and they have different paths to the discovery. So that's the nice thing; they're not all at the same point. So there is definitely a diversification within the portfolio. But as I said, I mean, if I can get excited again for a second, Hot Springs is certainly my favorite in that I just can't wait to see what's going to happen there. If Hot Springs hits like we all think it's going to, based on the geochem and the geophysics, I mean, that's going to change the face of Nevada. That's going to be more than a company maker. I'm just really, really excited on that one. And of course, I love the other ones as well, but, that's the one where there's just huge potential, on all of them. But I think Hot Springs is just really excited because it's never been drilled before. So,
could you talk us through the Treasury too, Paul, as well? Treasury and burn rate.
Sure.
And what I liked about your company before I invested was just who you had involved. I'm not worried about your access to capital. If you could share about that too.
Yeah, no, exactly. So at the end of June, we had just over $3 million in cash on our balance sheet. We did do a $3 million raise in June at 70 cents. So if we're burning on all 4 projects like we anticipate we are, we're looking at an average of, call it 200 to 250 a month type thing. I'd say over 90% of that is going into the ground. So we have very little, corporate overhead burn, if you will. It's very much an exploration in the ground focus project. Now, of course, we are an exploration company, so at some point we will need to come back to the market. But we're very comfortable right now, and as you mentioned, it's kind of a weird market. But I'm sure we're all listening to the Fed and seeing inflation numbers and all that sort of stuff. So I mean, I think gold is going to have a nice move, and I think the market is going to be there for us in the near term, and for everyone involved in gold.
Dan, you're not a rookie to Nevada. Talk about your connections to the assay labs and drillers, because obviously you can't move an exploration project forward without that.
It's actually a very good question and very important. And I would say that our team altogether is really well suited to this. For example, Justin Milliard, he's the president of the Elko chapter of the Geological Society of Nevada. So, once a month, he hosts all the drilling companies will come in and provide the beer. And as you know, drillers and geologists can drink a lot of beer. So he has a connection with the drilling companies, and he has a connection with a lot of the other exploration service companies that are based in Elko, which is very good because I'm actually based in Reno. So those would be maybe the 2 mining centers of Nevada. And so I have having lived in Reno since 2002, I have quite a lot of connections with drillers, exploration services, geologists here in Reno. And one of the reasons that I'm very excited about coming back and going for 3 for 3 is because we do have such a good base in Nevada. So even though I kind of wandered off to Africa and Mexico, I still feel that Nevada is home. So it's a good place to work for sure.
And how would you rank the projects you're working on relative to other projects you've had success with or didn't have success with?
I would say that, again, I agree with Paul that the Hot Springs Range project is certainly a huge prize. And to me, it reminds me a little of the Esaase project in the sense that, why is this still here? When we showed up in Africa and looked at Esaase and there wasn't a single drill hole, all there was about 500,000 ounces or so of placer gold. And so it was like, oh, but we could see that the placer gold was local. And then we could see that there was some artisanal mines up on the hillside. But once again, it wasn't the popular place to be in Ghana. So there wasn't soil surveys. There wasn't previous lode exploration. So Hot Springs Range project definitely reminds me of that. Weepah is its own really interesting thing. And it's kind of a mesothermal deposit, which isn't something that has been explored for as much as the Carlin type or epithermal deposits. But the interesting thing is that we're starting to see mesothermal components to it. So it seems like maybe one of these really interesting hybrid type systems. But as far as analogs go, well, we're going to be the pioneers for this, for saying what this deposit is about. But it looks better and better all the time. Once again, the thing that was lacking, it had width, it had strike length, it had width, and it had grade. And I think what we're adding is strike length. When you come to Spanish Moon is very interesting because even though it's close by Round Mountain, to me, it seems more similar to the stibnite deposit up in Idaho, where you have this multiple, everything's been prospected for there: tungsten, moly, antimony, silver, gold, copper, lead. All of those things have been prospected for, and most of them have been mined from that property. It's just a really super metal rich environment. And so, yeah, I would say it's probably closest to the stibnite deposit. But there, once again, it's kind of interesting. We know from historical reports that there was grade, and we've confirmed that. We know from the historical reports that there's significant width. These aren't really vein systems. They're really, particularly the Barcelona area, looks like a bulk mineable silver prospect, in which case the old timers only mined the veins out of it, and very few of those actually. So, we believe that we have a really good opportunity for bulk mineable silver. And then, of course, we have the epithermal gold component of it at Anton Canyon. Very good intercepts there. And that's going to be mainly a process that we've started, which is creating a 3D model so that we know exactly where to follow up on the good high-grade drilling that's already been done. Gilbert South reminds me a lot of Barqueno in Mexico. Very similar kinds of mixture of stockwork veins, but also like a root high-grade vein to the system. But really, I think the analog there, as far as Nevada goes, is certainly going to be more like Midas, where, at the surface, you don't really see the vein. You see indications of it. You get those kind of geologic indications that there's a bonanza vein at depth. But, you really need to drill to hit it. And that's what we're looking at Gilbert South. But we really need that CSA and geophysics, because the resistivity values will show us where the densest accumulation of quartz is. And, we expect to find those targets only like maybe 50 to 100 meters down, because we're already seeing bonanza grades at the surface on some of these ore dumps. So we know it's down there. It's just a question of finding out where is it going to be thickest, where is it going to be the most continuous. And we think that the resistivity geophysics will do that. It's a quartz finder, the kind of geophysics we intend to use there. And that's what we need to find is lots of quartz with lots of gold in it.
Yeah, thank you for that overview, Dan. And Paul, as we conclude, if investors want to follow up before you come back on this show, what's the best way to do that if they have specific questions?
Sure, you can go. We have on our website, which is www.eminentgoldcorp.com. We have an investor section where you see all our projects, our presentation, as well as contact information, both phone number and email. So if anybody wants to reach out, that's probably the best way to get in touch with us.
Excellent. And I will put that information in the show notes below as well. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show and providing this overview.
Thanks very much for having us, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. Have a great day.